Coming up on this episode, I'm thinking about the idea that there's no right way to live life. Like, the idea of a happy life or a good life is going to be different for us all. How we all interact with the world, go about our days, and just go through life is always going to be different. My happiness is never going to be your happiness, and your happiness is never going to be my happiness. We'll both experience happiness in our lifetimes. And the way that we interact with the world is going to vary, but we'll all constantly interact with the world in varying degrees. And that is fascinating. Like, not only are we interacting with the world continuously, we're interacting with each other and having an impact on each other's lives. Like, all of these kind of ideas that snowball out of this are fascinating. So, although I'll go all over this place with this episode, as always, I think it is an interesting thought to think about how we interact with life, how we live life, and the rules that we live life by, and how they can vary for everybody. Like, you may be able to change the rules of your own life, but don't realize it. So taking some time to think about that, to me, is important, fascinating, and interesting, and kind of fun, to be fair. So sit with me while I go through this one and try follow along the train of thought if you can, but I do go all over the place, so there is a warning for that. But let's go get into it. What's going on, beautiful people? This is Perspective Chasers podcast, and I'm your host, John. On this episode, I'm thinking about the fact that there's no right way to live. Like, life takes many forms, and every life is completely different. Like, not even to the idea of there's people that are born next door to me, there are people that are born miles away from me. Their lives are completely different from my own. So even if you're born in proximity to somebody else or far away, the chances of you having even a somewhat similar life is fairly few and far between. Like, there are so many variables in life that none of us walk the same path. So then none of the rules are going to apply exactly the same. But I think this is the thing that's kind of missold a lot in the world, that everybody sells that their way will work for everybody else. A lot of the time it'll work for some people, but not everybody. Like, we all have these similarities, we all have these overlaps in our life. But there are so many parts where it can be different that if we all try to run the same script, we're just going to trip over ourselves. So I want to take some time to think about how there is so much difference in the world and how, just as we are, we can't help but being different from each other. Although at the base we may have so many thoughts and feelings that are the same, that there's even a 1 degree difference at the core. By the time you get to the outside world, that creates so much variance, from hobbies to interests to passions and loves and whatever else. Like, even down to like the type of music that people resonate to. I was thinking about this kind of idea the other day of like how many people there are that follow various things, whether it be various forms of religion, various musicians, various artists in any form. Like, there are millions and millions of people that are fans of this person, that person, and that is an immense following to have. And if you take that idea of, well, if you take that in a sense of ideas, so that you have millions of people that share the same idea, to them, and whatever that idea may be, it's going to be real to them. But for the other millions or billions of people, that idea isn't a blip on the radar. For example, somebody could be an immense celebrity in their own country, travel overseas, and then they're just another face among a crowd. But back home, they can't walk 10 feet without getting interrupted by somebody or stopped or whatever else. Like, there's so many instances where a change of environment can teach you so much, from how you appear to the outside world to how the outside world appears to you. And by moving people and seeing how they interact with the world and how the world interacts with them is absolutely fascinating, because everybody interacts differently. Like, I was driving down the road the other day and I was just people watching as I was driving, listening to my music, fairly happy, just going along, going along with my music, to be fair. But I was watching other people in their car and other people walking along the streets. And like, so many people are just NPCs. They just have blank looks on their faces. They just look disinterested with life. Like, I know you're driving your car or whatever else, so you don't have to be all excited or whatever else. Or you might be walking to work or traveling home or whatever you may be up to. But like, just the level of engagement that most people have in the world seems fairly minimal, at least from my perspective. Like, see, that brings to mind a video that went around a while ago of a girl doing hopscotch just randomly on a back street, and some guy sees her. As he walks past her, he then does the hopscotch on his own. And it's just that idea of like, sometimes people need a little bit of incentive to kind of get going. Like, if you hear a bit of music and then somebody starts dancing and then they're like, oh, it's okay to dance. And then other people join in and then there's a couple of people dancing. So now you've got a crowd of people and now it's okay. It's a thing. So, and then you've got other extremes. But yeah, it is just a fascinating idea to see how, or to think about how people interact with the world. Like, even the idea of, you could live completely different lives throughout your own lifetime. Like, if you live your life with different people, if different life events happen, if you move countries or whatever else, like, all of these things, these patterns, the routines, the kind of life experience that you have along the way constantly changes and develops. And although you're always in the now's never consistent. Like, everything is always changing. By the time this video comes out, I'll be doing something else. I'll be thinking about the next episode, going about my life, or doing whatever else. But the time had to come when I had to do this video, and that meant the time had to come before I done this video, and da 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 da. So thinking about how that all shifts through time and how it's constantly slipping, you can never hold the now. Life's always going to change. Different things are going to happen continuously around the world. While I'm sitting here doing this, other people are doing other things around the world. Other things are going on. Life's changing, life shifting, and a lot of that I can't control. But also a lot of that I'm not aware of. Like, there are severe things going on in the world right now, but realistically, how much of them have a direct, severe impact on my day to day? With no disrespect, not much. Like, most of us can go about our day to day life fairly resistance free in that sense. Like, life is very different for some other people around the world. For the better or worse, it is immensely different for all of us. No two people live an identical life. We all live different variations of life. We all experience different things. Like, even the idea that you can't actually experience yourself in this world, not as somebody else experiences you. Like, I'll never see John as the world sees John. I see the world through John's eyes. I don't see John. So even, it's like that. I don't know what the name for it is, but I believe there is a name for it. When you first start hearing yourself back on recordings or seeing yourself back on recordings, because of as far as I understand it anyway, because of the way that you talk and the way that sound moves, the sound moves through your bones, so you hear your voice a few decibels lower than it actually is. Other people hear your voice through the air, so because there's less, damn it, I lost my flow. there's less substance, for lack of a better word, at the minute because my brain farted. Uh, there's less resistance in order to conduct that sound, so it comes out at a lower tone. I completely butchered that, but hey, we got there in the end. But yeah, basically, because when you talk, your voice is coming from you, it sounds deeper to you. Everybody else hears it at a slightly higher pitch because it's going through the air opposed to going through the bone of your jaw and basically originating from you. Oh, that just reminded me of a certain someone that I won't mention slapping their gums, and that's my pet peeve in life. And I had to say to him before, like, it's coming from your face. Can you not hear it? Like, I can hear it 6 foot across the room. How can you not hear it coming directly from your face? And yeah, anyway, I'm getting on a tangent. But life varies for all of us. And just thinking about the different ways it varies, thinking about the different kind of way things snowball, like I say, like 1 degree of difference can create a lot of things. So you start going to a new class, whether it be like yoga or martial arts or a painting class or pottery class or dance class, whatever it may be, that now opens up a whole new realm of life that can tangent completely different. You can meet a new friend and end up going on a spur of the moment holiday. You could meet a new business partner. You could meet a new romantic partner. You could, whatever it is, the possibility becomes abundant. And these small 1 degrees of difference in life could mean so much. And a lot of the time, it takes very little energy to make these things happen. Whether it be saying hi to a stranger in a polite way, obviously. London life can seem so antisocial. Like some places you'll go and it'll be normal to say hi to people. And in some senses, they'll seem too friendly and it will seem disingenuous. But they are genuinely being nice and they do care about your day. But growing up and living in London, you forget that people sometimes want to stop and talk and have time for other people. But anyway, again, another tangent, sorry. But yeah, these small 1 degrees of difference can mean a lot. So just the different things that you do in your life and the different things, different interactions that you have in your life, they can snowball so much. And that is the same for everyone. Like there's a rule of, I'm really on a roll of butchering, like quoting things today, but sorry. There's a rule of 7 people. So like everybody's connected within 7 people. I can't remember the name of the rule. If you do, comment it below, correct me or whatever else. But as far as I remember it, everybody is connected within 7 people. So I know somebody that knows somebody else that knows somebody up to the seventh that would actually know me in some sense. And it might not necessarily be on a close personal level, but they'd at least know me, of me or whatever else. Which is absolutely mad to think, considering how disconnected so many people feel, if that makes any sense. So like, no matter who you name, and I really struggle with like the idea of name dropping sits really funny with me. So unless it has a serves a real purpose, I don't really like doing it. So I'm not going to throw any names up, but insert any name. Um, all of these people, no matter how big they may be of like celebrity or how small they may be of just like a random worker or person just going about the world, in some sense, they're all connected to a degree. And to me, that is an insane concept because that means that everybody has somewhat of an effect on each other. Like, again, somebody else around the world made the clothes on your back, the shoes on your feet, the headphones in your ears, the phone in your hand, and everything else. You may never meet that person directly, but person of the person of a person that you know may have. And even if they haven't, they've still impacted your life to some extent. if they've done a good job on those shoes or a bad job on those shoes. It's going to affect your life to a degree if they've done a good job or a bad job on the phone or whatever else. Like all of these various things impact the world. Like now I've got the whole thing running through my head of like, you had one job memes, where it's just like you see somebody just painted over a bush instead of moving it out the way or whatever else. That's such a bad painted over a bush, like painted over a rock or something. Like friggin', I don't know, my brain's not firing properly as always. But yeah, so like everybody has these differences in their life, but these similarities. And I've said it with Dave for a long time that our lives have these parallels and like a lot of the time we have commonalities, but then our lives do have tangents as well and a lot of differences by all means. But then that is true for everybody. I was having a conversation the other day about like everybody's happiness would be the same. And I had to disagree with it because it's not. Like, my idea of happiness isn't necessarily somebody else's. Like, it's not to say this is my idea of happiness, but just using this as an example, that idea of like a white picket fence and the 9 to 5 and the this, that, or whatever else, like that kind of like modern family or nuclear family idea and that concept isn't for everybody. Like some people would rather spend their life backpacking around the world, never having children. Other people might want to spend their time making music and creating films or whatever it may be. Like there are so many ways to live life. There's no one right way. Ha, brought it home. But yeah, there's no right way to live life. Like, my right way isn't your right way. That, yeah, there's going to be similarity. There's going to be things that we both enjoy and we both dislike and all of that nonsense. But at the same time, there's going to be so many things that are far different. Take it to the food that you eat. Take it to the things that you do with your spare time. Like, if I had to do Dave's hobbies, although I'd maybe have fun for a little bit, I wouldn't enjoy them as much as my own hobbies. And he wouldn't enjoy my hobbies as much as his own hobbies. So all of these things, like we all tick differently. And that is so, so, so fascinating to me. Taking time to think about how we all tick differently and how everything kind of, there are so many similarities, but then there are so many differences. Like, another moment from my life when I was driving down the road the other day. I think I don't know if it's the first time I've ever witnessed it, but it's the first time it's ever noticeably stood out. But I see a man stop walking to talk to a pigeon and then just resumed his day. And it just completely baffled me for a second. And again, I was in my people watching phase, but I was just like, did I seriously just witness that? Like, and it just reminded me that there are those people in the world. Like, and again, that's not to say that's everybody, but there's enough of those people that most people will go their life seeing a couple people talk to pigeons or inanimate objects or whatever else. Like, again, silly things popping up in my mind. There's a woman that married a tree out there, and there's people that marry cars and this, that, and everything else. Like, oh, there are so many weird people in the world. There are so many variations of people in the world that, yeah, I don't know if there is ever going to be one right way to live. Like, even if you make the conversation a little bit more normal and just talk about like day to day life, London life wouldn't work in Spain or France or Italy. Like that hustle and bustle of like go, 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 go. It would just be so out of place. They're so much more calm, tranquil places. Like the kind of uh, oversized, everything's like XXL kind of idea of America wouldn't fit in like rural China where there's more like people are more dainty and small and do you know what I mean? Like everything kind of finds its place where it fits. And as backwards as that sounds, it's true. Like if something doesn't fit, it just keeps moving on until it does. Like all of these random ideas, they'll find their place. Like, see, this is where there's relevance. So Joe Rogan has this idea of that thoughts are living, like they're a living object, and I think there is a lot of truth to that because no one person will have a thought. Like, the- there's been ideas that have happened simultaneously around the world. I think the telephone, two people had the same idea for the phone at the same time, and different situations like that. That kind of like uh, there's. I'm struggling to put it into words. All right, so story time. If you built an isolated island and put a society of people on there completely cut off from every influence, they had no idea of modern anything. They was basically completely blank people. I think given enough time, everything that we have would re-emerge naturally. Like I don't think it's that complicated. These ideas that we have and everything else, like even the ideas of computing, that's evolved from the basic abacus to binary code to this, that, and everything else that we have now that has become something immense. But that realization happened once. It can happen again. Some people had that thought and idea and that realization or whatever else. That can occur again and it can occur in different ways and it can evolve and it can change and it can be realized in different ways. So when he says that, I think there is so much depth to that kind of concept in itself. That ideas are living things. That I mean, that brings into question our definition of living, but they're definitely interactive or immersive. Not immersive. They're damn it. I think they're entangled in a sense. Like, I don't think we're disconnected as much as we think. I think there may be almost like a plane of existence of like thoughts, ideas, almost like the astral plane, but for thoughts and concepts and ideas where they kind of float around and see what antennas or people pick them up, and some people resonate with certain ideas and other people don't. And they kind of just float through the ether until they find somebody that they resonate with. They could be floating around for days or years or eons. But these ideas find their place. And then that brings into thought the kind of idea of when somebody says, like, I was born in the wrong time. Like, if somebody was born a couple decades later, they would have had an immense impact on the world or whatever else. That idea kind of rings really true. Uh, I don't know if it is a fact of people born out of their time, but the idea in itself is interesting because if you see some person's capability in one instance and you're like, imagine them over there, that would be really fascinating. Like, take it, take like somebody that does fighting or take somebody that does any kind of discipline. If they get into it later in life and you see them and you're like, yeah, you're good. But if you got into that when you was a kid, you would be a master. Like there's different levels of these things that kind of all intertwine and interweave. And yeah, I lost myself there. I don't think there is kind of that much separation in the ideas that we think there are. So like, if everything's connected but disconnected, yeah, this is gonna get wacky now. If everything is like, if we're all connected, but we all have a degree of separation, so we all have this degree of self-identity and I am me, they are them, he, whatever else. Like, both are true simultaneously. And I think I have no right to say this, but that kind of gets into the idea of the quantum. Like both exist simultaneously. We are both one and we are both individual. So like we are both one entity as a whole species and population and this and everything else, but we're also one as in an individual simultaneously. Like if something hit the whole human population, it would affect us all. If something happens in an individual's life, it affects them solely. So both are true at the same time. Like if a meteor hit the planet, it would affect us all the exact same way. But if a storm hits a certain part of the world, it doesn't affect all of us. It affects a certain part of the world. So that is true for lives everywhere. It's always going to have variations. It's always going to have differences. It's always going to have different stimuli and different kind of. Damn it, my brain's going now. Different kind of variations, just the way that things unfold and fizzle out. Like no two people are ever gonna walk the exact same path. Life's just different for us all. So to say that there's one right way is just misinformation. uh yeah, I don't know, man. My brain's kind of going now. I think I'm gonna have to wrap this episode up. I bounced around there, but I think the idea is valid in the sense that we all live very similar but very different lives. And in that sense, it may be a little bit of a backwards concept, but at the same time, it don't make it any less true. There are things that would affect me that would also affect you, but then there are things that wouldn't affect me that would affect you and vice versa. And there are always going to be different variations, different ways to live life and different ideas of happiness. And you could live multiple lives in one life. You could live in multiple countries around the world. You could have multiple families or whatever. Like life unfolds differently for everybody. And that is fascinating. And I think that's part of why we're here is to just kind of answer that curiosity of the universe of just like, what happens if roll of a dice and every roll of a dice is a person? And you answer that question. What if this course of events happened? Well, your life by the time you get to the end of it, that is the answer. So unfortunately for each of us, once we take our last breath, that's at least the last this vessel, this entity, this body, or whatever else has an impact on this earth. But I mean, that reminds me of the saying that there's two deaths: the first time you take your last breath, and the last time somebody says your name. And that is always going to be an interesting concept. And it's a little bit bleak, but I think there is a lot of truth to it as well. I'm going to end the episode there and try to think of a seed with my fizzling out brain. The seed for this episode is there is no one right way to live life. So don't stress yourself so much on other people's ideas or concepts of life. Probe around, find your own way of living life, try different things. Like if life's a bit stagnant, stir the pot. Like roll the dice, do something different. Take a dance class, take a cooking class, pick up a new hobby, whatever it may be, do something different. Because one thing's for damn sure, doing the same ain't gonna change diddly squat. All the best, and I'll catch you on the next one.